What is art?
Art is
history.
What is art? That's a good question.
This is Art Uncovered.
Art is our collective cultural history.
A weekly podcast that brings you interviews with an eclectic mix of artists and creators.
Art is
disappointing your parents.
I'm your host, Kimberly. Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in. Before we get into this week's episode, I just have a quick announcement. You may have noticed that the introduction to this podcast sounds a bit different. That's because I recently moved this podcast into my own name, which will allow me to grow the podcast beyond the limited expectations of a larger media corporation. As such, I built a new website, artuncoveredpodcast.com. I will be updating the archive links over the next few months. So if you are an artist who I have previously interviewed, please be patient. I promise to update all links within the next 6 to 8 months. If, however, you need an updated link sooner rather than later for promotional purposes, for example, if you have an upcoming show or you need to include it in an application, send me an email at artuncoveredpodcast@gmail.com, and I promise to prioritize our conversation. So this podcast will still run on a weekly basis. I will also be producing short videos with featured artists on a monthly basis beginning in January, so stay tuned for that. Also, I know many of you are big fans of the inclusion of music in each episode, and I am currently working to get licenses with independent labels to be able to bring that back to the platform. But in the meantime, I am building a series of Spotify playlists of music from emerging artists. Each playlist will be built around a certain theme. This month's theme is America and includes music by Ezra Furman, Bill Callahan, Azim the Artist, and more. To listen, make your way over to our new website, artuncoveredpodcast.com. There you will also see a donate button in the right-hand corner of the screen. Any amount will be graciously accepted as I am now running this podcast on my own. I promise any donation will be put right back into ensuring the continuation of this weekly podcast. And that's enough of your time for now. Let's get into this week's episode. Thanks again for tuning in. My guest this week is Gabi Magaly, a Mexican-American artist whose work encourages strength and independence in the women of her culture. Gabi currently lives in San Antonio, Texas, and works remotely as a full-time professor of photography at Diné College in Arizona. And just a warning, there is reference to sex in this episode, so if you have kids around, it may be best to tune into a different episode. Welcome back, listeners. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's episode of Art Uncovered. This week, I am so honored to be here via Skype with Gabi Magaly. Gabi, how are you this afternoon?
Hi, Kimberly. I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Now that I'm talking to you, it's great that we were able to do this. So Gabi, you are a full-time professor of photography at Diné College in Saline, Arizona. First of all, congratulations, because you recently got this position. My understanding is that you graduated in 2020 into COVID, and then you started teaching basically online. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like graduating into COVID?
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction.
Yeah.
And it was a little scary, I will admit that, because when I started applying, a lot of jobs on the market were getting pulled or they were paused. So that was really scary. And I know you're not like guaranteed a job out of grad school, and it was even scarier because COVID was happening. So it was like, oh, okay, now my chances of getting a job has even gone lower.
Because the jobs simply weren't there.
Yeah,
totally.
They just like disappeared overnight, and a lot of schools were cutting back on a lot of things. They were cutting back adjuncts, and it just got really, really scary. And I applied to, I think, 50 to 60 jobs, and I only heard back from 2. And one job I made it to like the second interview, but then I didn't get hired. It was at elementary school as an art teacher.
Oh, wow.
And
You
then,
applied everywhere.
yeah, I played
Oh my
at
God.
everything. I was not joking when I really threw my fishnet out there, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
I will take anything like at this moment because I obviously you need money. We need money to survive. I
Totally.
just need to make ends meet.
Mm,
And I was very, very fortunate to get a call back from Dinnett College. And I really like the school. It's really small and intimate. It's a great small tribal school in Salem, Arizona. Um, and my students are essentially teaching me a lot because I was so used to Texas, I guess you could say, because I'm from San Antonio.
mm,
So I was used to teaching this, I guess, this population of students, like Texan students, and then my students in Salem, Arizona, almost all of them are indigenous students, and they have taught me so much. Two different worlds, and
mm,
their world is so beautiful, and they're teaching me so much about their culture, their traditions, and everything that.
mm.
And I think it's really, really great. Um, I'm just really happy that I got this job. It's just a whole different world than what I was used to. I guess you could say from the Western school system.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Um, can I ask you, do you have native roots? I know your family is from Mexico, I believe, but I'm just making this connection now. Do you, yeah, is your family native?
So I was reading an article, and I was reading that essentially every Mexican that come, or if you come from Mexico or any like Central America, you are indigenous. I
Mm.
know I am indigenous. I just know how much. I try to do before you like kill me. I try to do the 23andMe thing because I really wanted to know how much I was.
Wait, what is this 23andMe thing?
23andMe. It's
Should I
like
know what
the
this is?
ancestry. It's like the ancestry like thingies where you spit in a tube and then
Oh,
you send it
yes,
off.
yes, yes, yes.
It's another company called 23andMe,
Okay.
and I really wanted to know. And unfortunately, they could not extract enough DNA, and they're like, we can't do it. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I know like my dad's family is from San Luis Potosí, the capital. So, and in that area is there's a lot of Aztec history.
Mm,
So I don't know. I don't know how much am I indigenous, but I know I am.
mm,
But unfortunately, obviously, we have lost touch with our indigenous like culture and like our roots and stuff. So
mm.
I would love to know how much I am. So I'm mestizo. Mestizo is essentially a Spanish and indigenous
Okay.
mix.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe stay on the topic of your family a little bit more. I'm especially interested in your beautiful abuela. She she looks so amazing.
Oh,
So you
thank you.
you recently posted pictures of a visit with her, and she looks amazingly strong and super busy. Like I think every picture of her, she's like cooking or cleaning, and yeah, just seemingly an incredible woman. So I'm wondering if you could talk to us maybe about your relationship with her and also your intention behind these kind of candid photographs that you took of her, I think in her space, right? Was that her house?
Yeah, for sure. So I am a first generation Mexican American woman. Like I mentioned earlier, my dad is from San Luis and my mom's from Reynosa. And I haven't been back to San Luis Potosí like in 14 years.
Wow.
So now that I'm an adult, now I was like, I really want to go back and I want to go visit her and see what my childhood summers look like because that's we would go every year. And so I went back and nothing has changed. Everything is still the same. My abuelita has not moved anything, any of her figurines, any of her. She collects porcelain figurines. They have not moved. All her pictures in the same spot. It's crazy.
There is one picture you have of, I think it's like her, what would that be called? Like armoire or whatever, where there's a TV and then like thousands of figurines.
Yes.
So
She
cute.
collects them. She loves those porcelain dolls. Like I
Oh.
don't know why. I think they're kind of creepy, but she just loves them. So I went back because I really wanted to like I've been trying really hard to like get back in touch with like my childhood or like my identity, trying to understand what it means to be like a woman, like the sacrifices like that the women in my family have given up for us, for my generation and the next generation after us. And I'm just trying to figure all that out. I'm trying to see where I stand with that and like womanhood and identity. And of course, me going back, I asked her like questions and like, oh, what was like that? What was this like when you were growing up? And can you tell me stories about this and about that? And she was kind of like hesitant at first because she was like, why are you asking me that? That's not in like an invasive thing, but she was like, I don't get it. Why do you want to know about that? Like that was so long ago. And I'm like, Grandma, I was like, you don't understand. Like the next generation after us is not gonna know who you are, and I want them to know who you are. Like, can you please just like because she has sacrificed so much. And unfortunately, my grandpa left her with no source of income, 4 kids by herself. And she somehow figured it out. And I thought I was just like blown away. I'm like, I couldn't even think about how do I do that at the age of 27? 4 kids and just like nothing, no money, no nothing, just figuring it out. And she did.
Do you think her resistance to talk about it is out of modesty or out of not wanting to kind of churn up those memories?
I think out of modesty, because right after I explained to her, because that's just the thing about in the Mexican, like, well, what I've experienced in my culture is that we don't talk about our feelings. We don't talk about, I guess you could say, not trauma. We don't talk about any of that. Like like women are supposed to be silent. They hold in their emotions. They're not supposed to talk about their feelings. They're meant to be strong women. They're not allowed to cry about these things. Like only your kids are allowed to cry, or like that's what I've experienced. And that's what was really hard. And I wasn't like prying her for these things. I was just like, Abuelita, how was it when I didn't straight up be like, how was it when the grandpa left you? I didn't ask that. I didn't just like bluntly ask that. And I was just like, Abuelita, how was it growing up? You know, like then she would slowly like lead the conversation. And then she like really just opened up to me and just telling me all these like very personal things. And I was like very shocked, like how much she went through. And I asked her, I was like, do people know about this? She's like, no. She goes, I never really talk about it. She goes, because no one's ever asked me. And I was like, oh. So that's the reason why I kind of wanted to go. I haven't really told any of my family members like there's a lot of the stories she told me. But some of them I was like, they're very sad and they were very hard to like listen to because it's your, you know, it's your abuelita, it's your grandma. You don't want to think that someone could hurt your, you know, your loved ones, you know.
Do you think you could talk a little bit more about the way women are treated in the Mexican culture? And I'm asking this question because I think a lot of your work kind of deals with some of these criticisms. Yeah, I guess I'll hand the mic over to you if you could respond.
So from what I've experienced through what I've seen from my mom's mom and my dad's mom, it's funny because we have 2 different names for them. We have grandma for my mom's mom and then abuelita for my dad's mom. So that's how we like, when we talk about them, that's how we're able to tell the difference. But both of my grandmothers, they went through a lot. And unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, they can't really talk about their feelings or express their frustrations because they're meant to put on this strong face for the family and stuff like that. So that's what I saw growing up. And obviously when you're a kid, you don't really see that. You see just a strong woman. And then as you grow up, you start to learn a lot of the family, I guess you could say, drama or the family issues. And that's when you start to see like, oh, now I see why grandma was so strong, or why she was so quiet about certain things, and why she never really spoke up about these things, because she never got to process it, or she never got to talk about it with anybody. And I guess therapy was never, I guess you could say it has like a bad stigma also. Like we never bring that up either. It's like, I don't know why therapy's like has a bad stigma. I think I would love to go to therapy, but it's seen as a bad thing also.
Do you still hold that belief, like, or do you feel a stigma against it?
No, I would love to go to therapy. I always like tell my mom, I was like, oh, if I could go to therapy, I would, you know, like I would love to like figure out a lot of like trauma that I have that I didn't realize was trauma until like about a couple years ago. I would even love to go to family therapy with my with everybody, but that obviously would never ever happen, unfortunately.
Even for you individually?
Oh, for me, I would love to go. I want to do it. I don't know why I keep making excuses as to
Yeah.
why I haven't done it, but I think my art is very therapeutic for myself, and that's my form of therapy.
Mm,
But
mm,
I know there's other stuff that I need to deal with myself.
mm. I wonder if that stems from, family beliefs,
Mhm.
if it's deeply rooted. Yeah.
And I think it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, the women in my life honestly have sacrificed so much for us, for my generation and the next generations that follow.
Mm.
Um, because without their sacrifices, I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without, without them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for sure, they're just strong women. I don't know how they did it,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, I'm curious about your work, and I'm gonna pause for a second to look at your website because I forget the name of this project, but the content was pretty sexual.
Oh,
Let's
that's
see.
not ladylike. Oh
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Oh my God,
Maybe I will
yes.
keep that in because it's kind of funny. Yeah, so your project that's not ladylike. Because the way that you described kind of your critique of the way women are treated was very
Hmm.
personal to your own relationship with your grandmothers, which is something that's like
Hmm.
homely and domestic. And then we have this project here, and yeah, there are depictions that look similar to maybe vaginas.
Yeah. So how that's so funny. I guess talking about, yeah, I mean all of my work does stem from my upbringing and stuff. So that's funny. So the reason why that came up and how that was created was the fact that I always heard that phrase from my mom. That's not ladylike. That's not ladylike. Anything like if I
Oh.
sat with my legs wide open, that's not ladylike. Cross your legs.
Hmm.
If I were to spit, that's not ladylike. Like anything that's, I guess, quote unquote, that's not ladylike. My mom would always say that. That was so ingrained in my brain. So obviously, sex wasn't really talked about. Like my mom gave me, yes, the birds and the bees talk, and she was like, "This is what sex is," and she gave me the most driest scientific, like, like description of what it is. Like she didn't go into much detail. Like she's like, "Look, if you and a man sleep together, you could potentially get pregnant." And I was like, okay. And that's essentially was it. She did not mention anything else about like like I did not know a woman could get wet. I did not know what that meant. I would
Mm.
hear it in music and I was like, what does that mean? Like my mom didn't go into detail. Like I didn't know what the clitoris was. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
So it was just
Would you
really
have
like
preferred for your mom to have gone in that much detail? Because I
not
think I would be
really,
mortified.
not really, but I didn't understand that's what my body did. Like my mom never really talked about like any of like the woman's function. So
Mm.
obviously meeting my boyfriend and you get to start to play around and that's when you start to discover your body.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
we were not talked about masturbation or anything like that. And obviously the safest sex is with yourself.
Mm.
So I thought it was just very interesting how liberating masturbation is.
Mm.
And that's when I started to talk about my work because at 15, at my quinceañera, I made a promise to the Virgen of Guadalupe, the Virgin Mary, that I
Mm.
would stay a virgin till I was married. And I obviously did not keep that promise. But I just find it very interesting that the girls had to make this promise and the boys didn't. So that was very hard for me to wrap my mind
Oh,
around. And I was
wow.
like, wait, what about my brother? Can he make this promise? Why aren't my cousins making this promise?
Yeah, wow.
So it was just really interesting. So that's how I kind of came up with that concept with like, obviously as you could see, there's like doilies of me masturbating on them, and it's
Yeah.
me on embroidered on curtains masturbating, or the clitoris is on like table runners, stuff that you would see in like that I used to see in my abuelita's house, like
Mm.
the doilies, the table runners, like those really foo-foo like pillowcases and like um
Yeah, it looks very, very grandma-esque.
so that's what I kind of wanted to do, like subvert the fact that sex happens. But yeah, I think that's the thing that I think was really hard. I can now talk about sex with my mom. Obviously now that I'm much older and like we could joke about it and stuff. Like when I was much younger, obviously you can't joke about it. You're like, mom's like, don't say those things and like that's bad to say and whatever. And now my mom can joke and whatnot. And it's really funny to see
Yeah,
that
that's great.
grandma
That's great. Does she get a kick out of it too?
she I've shown her my work and she's kind of like, okay, Gabi, like she is not against it, but she's never been like, oh my God, don't do that. That's bad. My mom was very she was very strict growing up. But now she's a lot more laid back and much more relaxed when it comes to having like really fun conversations about sex or like dating and all these things. Because I understand growing up, my mom was very serious, and I understand why she was very serious because her grandma, my great grandma, she was very serious. Like she was really hard on my mom. So I can see why she was trying to do that with me. And then as we got older, because I'm the oldest daughter, as I got much, much older, she started to like relax and be like, okay, I don't have to be as strict on my girls as my grandma was on me. So, but yeah, it's really fun to have conversations with my mom now and like goof around and about those topics.
This is Art Uncovered. We'll be right back. Thanks again for tuning in, all. As you may have noticed, this podcast may sound a little different than it did about a month ago. And that is because I moved this podcast into my own name so that I can grow it in a way that benefits my guests, the conversations, and the listeners. So a lot is going to stay the same. This will still be a weekly interview-based podcast highlighting the work and practice of emerging artists, but some things have changed with this move. The big difference is how our episodes will be presented. So our podcast now has its own URL, artuncoveredpodcast.com. There I'm able to organize, group, and archive conversations based on theme. So basically I'm going to be creating playlists based on a theme so that you can listen to a stream of conversations all related to a certain idea. Those ideas will range from specified media to a common conceptual idea such as climate change, race and identity, family, etc. So you'll also notice on our website in the upper right-hand corner a donate button. Since I'm running this podcast now on my own without the backing of a company, any donation will be graciously accepted. It will help ensure the continuation of this podcast, and it will also help fund special conversation episodes that will take the form of recorded panel discussions and live events. All that information and more is available on our website and also on our Instagram page at art_uncovered_podcast. Thanks for listening, thanks for following, and now back to the episode. I'm like looking at your work here and I see a lot of portraits, right? Like one with you and your grandmother, or portraits of your grandmother, and then I see portraits of you with with a male partner. I don't know if he or they are current partner or past, but I don't see any of your mom. Did I just bypass it? Is it because your mom doesn't like to be on camera?
My mom, I think it's actually kind of funny because I'm gonna go photograph my other set of grandparents on Friday. My mom, it's not like she's against it. It's just like she's never been able to take pictures. She jokes around now. Like I'm saying, like she's really funny. And when I tell mom, I'm like, no, be serious. She's like, oh, I can't be serious. And she like jokes around. And I'm like, Mom, I really want to take this picture with you. And like, she'll smile at the camera. She'll be, obviously it's really hard not to smile when you see a camera. Yeah. I'm like, no, Mom, like relax your face. Just be serious. And like, I can never get a good portrait with her. Never. That's the next one. I want to take a really great portrait with me and my sister, and her, with the three of us.
And keep fighting for it.
Yes, I really want to. I do have this one that I took of me and her in undergrad. It's her cradling me like a baby, like La Pieta, the statue. And that's one of my favorite photos of my mom. But she's like smirking a little bit, and I'm like, Mom, you're always supposed to be smiling. So it's funny. But one day with practice and with good direction, you can get it. Yeah, I actually would like to talk a little bit about your portrait series with this person named Frank. So the title of the series is Gabi and Frank. And it's funny, like based on even the title, it seems like it should be a portrait of both of you, and both of you are certainly present in the frame, but you're the only one who's looking at us, and your partner's back is faced to the lens.
So to me, it looks like there's this intentional hiding of Frank's identity where you're at the forefront and kind of the star of the image. Can you tell us a bit about this series?
For sure. So Frank's my boyfriend. And the first portrait I have, I think it's the one of me on top of him, like my head on his chest. That was an undergrad, and we had got into like a more serious argument. Not like those like silly, like, like disagreements that you have like in high school or whatever, but it was like a more serious argument. I think that's one of the worst fights we've ever had. And one, like, I was crying and we were just disagreeing about a lot of stuff. And then I was like, at the end of once we like figured out at the end of the conversation or the argument, I had said, I want to take a picture. And he's like, why do you want to take a picture right now? And I was like, I want to take a picture of the fact that we just had our first like adult argument, I guess you could say. And it was like a shift in our relationship. And he was like, okay. He goes, sure, whatever. He's so supportive of everything. Even after an argument, he's like, fine, let's do it.
Oh, that's so special.
And so I set the camera up and I got my remote and I took the picture, and it's like you could kind of see my eyes are still kind of puffy and red from the crying and stuff.
Yeah.
So this day, I that's one of my favorite portraits of us. And he kind of didn't really even want to be in it. That's why he's facing away, because he was kind of like still. I guess we were just so mad and annoyed with each other at that moment we were. But he didn't obviously push me away, because obviously we love each other, and that was just his way of like so supporting me. So then the second image is of him laying on my chest, because I wanted to flip this one, because that picture was taken I think 5 or 6 years later, and essentially that we are now in a much better and healthier and much happier place than we were at that very split second when I took that photo. And the fact that he is like, I don't want to be in it again. Like he doesn't, I mean, I will take a picture of him. Like, I mean, I'm not secretive of his identity. I mean, he streams, he's a streamer. So he's not secretive of his identity, but he's like, I want to focus on you. And he goes, this is a relationship. I know this is our relationship between us two. He goes, but this portrait series is literally from your side of the relationship. I essentially use myself a lot in my images, is because I never saw myself growing up, and how I have like long black hair, and I have I have darker skin tones, and I love and it's taken me a long time to say this, but I finally love the way I look. And that's why I had my boyfriend in it. And I was like, I really want our skin, I guess you could say, to be a highlight in this too, because you never see in the industry or like in like media, you never see people of color put in a beautiful, loving setting. We always have this really bad stigma of being really mean to each other. And I've seen that, and like a lot of movies portray us like that we're very mean, and we are like, we just like argue all the time. And I was like, that's not what I want to present. I want to present that we have like an actual like loving, healthy, happy relationship. And stuff. That's why I use myself a lot in a lot of my stuff. Yeah.
You just said there that when you were younger, you weren't able to see yourself. What do you mean by that?
So obviously I know this is a big thing now, but representation does matter. And I really do believe that. I guess you could say in undergrad, I was one of the very few Mexicans in my undergrad program. A good chunk of everybody was white. And here and there was people of color. But it was really hard, because I was like a little self-conscious, I guess you could say, because all of my teachers were white. No, like I just didn't see myself in the art world, and I kind of questioned my identity. And I was like, do I belong in this world where we were never taught anything of like from Mexico art history, any of that stuff, or any other, like not even just Mexico particularly, but like Black history, like in the art, like we were just never taught any of that. So and then we would go to art shows, and everybody was white, and everybody on the walls were white artists, and I was like, I don't see myself. And it was very hard to visualize myself in this art world. So that's when I had finally decided, I was like, I can't continue going to these spaces and not see myself. So I was like, I said essentially, F it or screw it. I'm going to put myself into this work. That's why I started to do self-portraits. And that's how I came up with my saint series. And that's why I used myself in all of my work. Because I had this really great interaction with these two little girls at a show that I had one time in San Antonio. And they waited so patiently for me because I was talking to somebody. And the mom came up to me and the two little girls came up to me. They were so nervous.
Aw.
But the mom goes, I want to say thank you so much because my little girls look up to your work and they see themselves. And I started crying because that's what my work is about. It's for other little girls and boys to see themselves in my work and not essentially like to feel empowered and to see themselves like, oh, there's a brown, beautiful brown girl on a white wall in a space where she's not supposed to be in. And those two little girls were so happy to take a picture with me. And it just like, that's something I will never, ever, ever forget. This happened like a year or two ago. So that's the reason why I use myself in my artwork.
You mentioned, and this will be my last question for you, Gabi, a saint series. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's going on with that?
So like I had mentioned earlier that I was raised, I guess you could say Catholic. I was raised, I did my first communion and my confirmation, and then I had, yes, that was lovely classes. So I did a saint series. So obviously, like I mentioned earlier, that I had promised my virginity to La Virgen de Guadalupe, and I questioned it a lot in my identity, and I was like, oh my God, I don't get it, and all this stuff. So my first one that I did was, I guess you could say a contemporary version of La Virgen de Guadalupe, owning her sexuality and how would she look like today. So that's the first one that I did, and I look a little really sexy, I guess you could say, which was really hard for me to say out loud, but I'm very sexualized in a lot of my the saints that I pick, and the saints that I did end up picking were the saints that were saints that we were taught, in confirmation and our first communion. Like those are the saints that I remember, or the saints that my mom and them prayed to growing up. And there were always sometimes a good chunk of the saints were men, and I'm like, why are we praying to men? Why men? Like I'm not, like I questioned a lot of my religion and like stuff like that, and and to this day I do pray to La Virgen de Guadalupe. And I'm like, I don't get it. Why men? Like women are the ones that like brought us into this world. And like I just went through this weird like identity crisis of like religion and stuff, and I wanted to essentially put myself into them because these were saints that were men, and they were white, either with blonde hair, blue eyes, and I just didn't get it. And I was like, well, I'm not saying I want people to worship me, no, that's the last thing I want, but I want people to see like, hey, look, there's a brown woman in these positions, like this is what I want. This is the new contemporary version of what we need to like show the world. That's why I created the Saint series, because I just didn't see myself, even in the religion, I didn't even see myself. So that's what I kind of wanted to do, to like flip it on its head. And it was really funny because I was a little scared of like, what is it? Blasphemy. I was really, I was really scared of that, because I was like, oh my God, what is my grandma going to think? Cause she's very religious. And I was like, she's going to think I'm making fun of the religion. She's going to think I'm like disrespecting it. And that's what the last thing I wanted to do, was disrespect it. I just wanted to like put a contemporary twist on it. She came. Go ahead.
She saw them?
She saw it. Yes, she came to the show and she thought they were so beautiful. And she told me, she goes, in Spanish she told me, but in English I'll translate. She told me that she essentially said, thank you. And at first I was like, you're welcome. And I was like, but thank you for what? Like in my head. And I'm like, because I didn't really question it. But then like a couple days later, then it like realized, like it dawned on me, like I was able to express myself when she hasn't been able to express herself. So that's kind of like the thank you that I took. I took it as. So I was a little worried. I will admit that, because there's one that I think is Saint Sebastian, and it's like my I think my left boob, or I don't know, one of my boobs is out, and she saw, that's the first one you see when you walk into the show. I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna think like I do porn or something. I was so worried. So she didn't see the sexual side of it. She saw it as, oh, she wants to portray these saints. and she wants to be these saints. Like, that's the way she saw it. And she didn't see it as, oh, she's naked and tied to a tree. She didn't see it like that. So that made me happy.
Well, Gabi, I can't thank you enough. This was such a wonderful conversation. And like I told you off air, I'm a big fan of what you're doing. And yeah, it was an honor to talk with you this afternoon.
Sure, for sure. Thank you so much for having me and letting me talk about my artwork and about my the strong women in my family and stuff. Thank you so much.
All right, listeners, that's all for this week. Please be sure to tune in next week as I will be speaking with Sarah E. Jenkins, an interdisciplinary artist and educator who works in stop motion animation, drawing, and social practice. Sarah's work is inspired by labor, women's work, and post-industrial landscape. I hope you all tune in and have a safe week. Bye-bye.